Today on JiK Labs, we show you a very quick and easy way to enter sequential data in Microsoft Excel utilizing sequence. Let's get started. Now that you have Excel open and ready to go, you're going to see we have some headers up here with some sequential data that we want to enter. We're going to focus today's video on the sequence function, which is only available in Microsoft 365. If you click down in our menu and look at the chapters, you'll see the fill function for those of you utilizing older versions of Microsoft Excel. This will allow you to enter series of data without utilizing the sequence function, which is not available on older versions of Microsoft Excel. So let's go ahead and jump into the sequence function and why it would be helpful for you. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at an invoice number. And that's going to start as 1001. And let's say we have to go to 1010. Well, you could sit here and go 1002, 1003, 1004, oops, or typo, you got to go back, 1004. But who's got time for that? So let's delete that out and let's enter it again. 1001 and 1002. Well, right now, if we were to highlight these two guys and hit that little box down below where we get this black cross, we can scroll this down and Excel will automatically count that out for us, which is pretty nice. But that's only 10, so that's easy to do. But what if we had 100 or 1,000 of these invoice numbers that we needed to manually enter? That could take forever. But luckily with Microsoft 365, there is a much easier approach to that, and it's called sequence. Just like with any other Microsoft function, we're going to start with equals. We're going to enter sequence. The very first thing is how many rows do we want to go down? Well, in this case, we're just going to go down 10. How many columns? Right now, we're going to go 1, or we could leave it blank. But we'll just leave it as 1 for now. And we want to start at 1001, comma, and what do we want to count by? In this case, since we're counting up invoice numbers, we want to go by 1. We close out those parentheses and we hit enter, and you can see with 365, it's built that array for us. And all of that information is exactly like what we did that we've manually copied and pasted into it. So let's take a look at that function, and that is that. So what else can we do with this? Well, we could go in here and edit this, and if we wanted this count by 5s, we could. Now we see the invoice numbers counting by 5. But for this example, we're going to leave them as counting up as 1 to make your life easier. Also, it doesn't just work with invoice numbers, we can use it for dates. So let's come in here again and say sequence, number of rows, 10, columns again, we're going to just leave this as blank, so enter another comma, because you still have to have that field for columns. And what do you want to start with? Well, let's start with a hard date, but since it is a date we're typing in, you need to use the quotations, and we're going to say 1/1/2022. Close out those quotations, comma again. What do we want to count up by? Well, we're going to step up by 1 day increments. So we'll hit 1, close out those parentheses, and we're going to hit enter. And as you can see, we've already formatted C and D to show us dates, and this is what that looks like. Again, we've left this blank. If you were to come in here, and we'll just show you the error that you'll get. If you come in here and don't put in the second comma for columns, it is going to think that this date that we've entered is the column, and we would hit enter, we get an error. And we need to take a look at that. If we go back and look at our equation and say, we are missing the columns, but adding in that second comma to allow the columns field to be blank. If it is blank, it defaults to 1, which was what we want here. And then we hit enter and we see everything is good and happy. Now, that is showing you increments of 1. Let's do it one more time for dates. But this time, we're going to nest the today function. So again, we want 10 rows. We'll say 1 column, and then we're going to come in here and say today. We're going to close out those. That's our start date. So we're going to hit comma, and we want to count by 30 days. So we'll hit enter 30 and close out those parentheses. And as you can see, we're making this video on April 5th in 2022, and we're counting up by 30 days as we go down. Now, one thing to keep in mind with this sequence function utilizing the nested today function, if we were to open this Excel workbook tomorrow, this would be 4/6, and it would be jumping up in 30-day increments. And there's the only way to go about changing that if you were to copy this data, and like we did previously, you could right click and paste values, or Control-Alt-V to bring up the shortcut for paste special. These are now locked in. As you can see up here in our formula bar, that there is no more equation. It is just the dates at 30-day increments from today, which is April 5th. If you come back over here to day 1, our first date example, we can see that in the formula bar, we are seeing the sequence function. Now let's take a look at that function for 30 days using today. There we go. Now let's say we want to make an array of data. So once again, equals sequence, open those parentheses, numbers of row, we're going to go 5 rows by 4 columns. Let's start with 1 and let's step by 1 and close out those parentheses. Go ahead and hit enter. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on and so forth by 5 rows by 4 columns. And that's what this guy looks like down here. So keep in mind, if you're using the day function, every time you are in this workbook, if you open it tomorrow, you're going to see tomorrow's as the start date. Maybe that's what you're hoping to accomplish. But the great news is you can do whatever you would like in Microsoft Excel. It's just a matter of practicing and getting to know the equations and being able to make the workbook in which you need. Hopefully you found this sequence function helpful. It's going to save you a lot in time and energy than trying to enter all the numbers one by one or enter the first few and copy and paste them down. It just makes your life a little bit easier. Now, before we go, we want to show you one more thing, which necessarily isn't tied to the sequence function, but it is the built-in fill with Microsoft Excel. So we're going to come in here, 1001. We're going to highlight that cell, and we're going to go to our Home tab ribbon, and on the far right-hand side, we're going to hit Fill, and we're going to go down to Series. And we're going to go by columns, and our step value is 1, and we want to stop at 1010. And we want it linear, and we'll just get OK. And bam, there you go, as well as another alternative for filling in sequential data. Again, our personal belief is that the sequence function will be a little bit quicker for you, but the fill function will be available in previous versions of Microsoft Excel, where the sequence function is only available in 365. Do you need... Today on JiK Labs, we show you a quick and easy way to enter mundane data that needs to...